And there are several other major tests coming up, too. We're going to talk about them now with John Stanton. He's the Washington bureau chief at BuzzFeed.com. Democratic Congressman from New York, Jerry Nadler. Norm Ornstein, he's the author of the book, It's Even Worse Than It Looks, How the American Constitutional System Collided with the New Politics of Extremism. He's also a columnist for National Journal. And former Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, a Republican from New York, also exploring a candidacy for her old seat again. So welcome back to the panel, Nan. Welcome to all of you. I want to go through a bunch of things that were on the agenda in Congress in 2013 and that didn't go anywhere, that will be back on the agenda in 2014. We'll see if there's prospects for anything real happening. And I want to start with that question of, in 1 week, 1.3 million Americans, Congressman, are due to have their unemployment benefits expire. The president was talking there about a little movement, maybe for some kind of a 3-month deal. What is going on, and how optimistic are you that something is going to be done before this expiration?
Frankly, I don't. It's the ball's in the Republican court. The House Republicans have to decide what they want to do with that. They totally blocked any extension. A 3-month extension is little enough. We normally act a year at a time at least. It'll cost some money. I don't know where that money will come from. The Republicans will demand, although I would disagree with it, that it's got to be paid for instead of just by increasing the deficit from what it otherwise would be. The deficit's gone down faster than at any time since after World War II. Too fast. It's hurting the economy. We will push. The Democrats in the House and Senate will do what we can. The Senate will probably pass something quickly. In the House, the Republicans control the agenda, and they have to decide what they want to do. But, you know, I'm not terribly hopeful, because you've seen people like Rand Paul and others say that extending unemployment insurance is a bad thing, that even in an economy in which there are three applicants for every job, in which the number of long-term unemployed is at record levels, they believe that extended unemployment insurance is just is a disservice to people. It better let them starve.
So do we have a sense, John, within the Republican ranks on Capitol Hill, how much of that sort of libertarian view that Congressman Nadler is describing, the Rand Paul view on this, we just don't need unemployment insurance, how prevalent is that versus how many Republicans are willing to, in the sort of the classical sense, negotiate over this and come up with some kind of a deal?
I think that the libertarian wing is certainly starting to take a broader hold within the party, you know, with folks like Rand Paul and some of the others that in the last couple of years have sort of set that stage for that. But I think that there are plenty of Republicans that would be willing to deal. The problem is that when Democrats agreed last year, 2 years ago, to offset all the spending in unemployment insurance, that set a precedent that Republicans no longer feel that they have to give in on that anymore. In the past, they've been willing to say, fine, we'll do this. It's an emergency. We don't need to pay for it with all or whatever. Now they feel like they can hold that line, and they're not feeling pressure from back home, particularly in the House, where a lot of their districts are drawn in such a way that they aren't going to feel that kind of pressure, and so it's going to be a difficult thing to move.
Well, so Nan, if you're looking to, you've been in Congress before, looking to get back there, this is an issue I think that's going to matter to a lot of your constituents. Sure. Is it something that you want to see happen, and then if so, what is it that you think Republicans in Congress, the Republicans who you'd like to serve with, what should their approach to this be right now?
Well, the fundamental question really is, what's the very best thing we can do for the millions and millions of Americans who are unemployed, the long-term unemployed? And that goes to the core of the issue, and I think it should be the issue for 2014, which is we need an economy that grows. And we need to have real pro-growth reforms. Tax reform should be at the top of the agenda, because the reason these folks are suffering as they are is because we have not had a climate for the past 5 years in which businesses of any size,
but the immediate issue here that we're talking about with the benefits due to expire in a week, with Democrats saying we want to, do you think Republicans should just pass an extension of unemployment benefits? Do you think they should be asking for any specific kind of concession? What's your view on it?
I think there's going to have to be some sort of, I mean, we have to reach across the aisle. You know, when Jerry and I were in Congress together, I co-founded a Common Ground Caucus so that we could work together. But there has to be, I think there should be movement from both sides. The Republican side can certainly move toward working with the Democratic side on extending unemployment benefits, but let's see some movement as well toward real pro-growth reforms.
But wait a minute, I think those could be. Can I get in here a second? There is a diametrically opposed viewpoint as to what pro-growth reforms are. Nan says tax reforms. Some of us will say we ought to spend more money on infrastructure, put people to work, prime the pump in a Keynesian sense. The Republicans will totally disagree. There's a total loggerheads as to what the proper course of action to increase employment is. That's going to be fought out, but it's not going to be settled in a week or two when these when unemployment insurance ends for these people. And the question is, and the only immediate question is, are you willing to vote to increase the unemployment as we always to extend the emergency extended unemployment as we always have, without, and call it an emergency because it is an emergency, yes, without an offset.
And Norm, you are the expert Congress watcher. As you look at what is coming up in a week now, what is your read on what's going to happen?
I think we're likely to see this extension. The big problem at this point, John identified that they need to find an offset. All of the low-hanging fruit and some of the medium-hanging fruit was taken away with the deal on the budget. And in fact, because of the controversy now over the $6 billion from military pensions that is likely to be put back in some fashion, you got to find money. And they're not going to find it with loopholes or other kinds of taxes. So what's left? The same thing that we've turned to 25 times before, spectrum auction revenues, and my guess is we'll use the spectrum auction revenues. The other element here, of course, is if we're looking for growth right now, what we know about unemployment insurance is that it is an injection immediately into the economy. All that money is spent, and it provides a significant amount of economic growth. So the need for an offset, if you're looking at it in terms of the cost-benefit ratio, is much less than it might be for other things.
Right.
But we're going to need that offset right now.
Because the Republicans are going to insist on it.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, you know, in Washington a couple of weeks ago, they opened 2 Walmarts. 25,000 people showed up for 200 jobs. So the idea that people are sitting back and saying $300 a week, wow, I can put my feet up on the ottoman, crack open a beer, and watch basketball all day long is crazy. I mean, if you get $300 a week, it's, am I going to pay the rent? Am I going to pay the heating bill? Am I going to put food on the table? So it's not.
Right. No, it's money to people who need money, and it would go right into the economy. Yeah. So unemployment, that is the immediate thing, the immediate test of whether Congress is a turnaround moment at all for Congress. There are some other big tests on the horizon. We're going to get into all of them. Start with a new one right after this break.